Cheers. I feel better. I feel better. Welcome to Mr. UFC Vegas Fight Club TV. I am Kyle, your host. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the bet review show for UFC on ESPN +1. Dillashaw versus Cejudo. We're going to talk about the best bet play, the free play, and our overall feeling on this card. I definitely want to talk a little bit about the main event and co-main event. So I've got a couple fights here that I do want to talk about overall as a betting perspective, and as well as a little bit more about just what's going to be happening moving forward with all these fighters that are really were in those two fights, the main event and the co-main event. So we will get into all of that. But before we do not forget to subscribe, like, head kick the bell icon, get involved with Fight Club TV. It's a growing UFC and gambling channel all in one spot. And after every video, I continue the conversation down below with everybody. Love to have the conversations with who you guys are betting, who you guys are looking to bet moving forward, any bets that you won, lost, things that you thought overall on the card. Always on my prediction videos, I always appreciate all those conversations with everybody who are very active within the comment section. Do not forget to also get that thumbs up a click and make sure that I know what content you guys are enjoying. So as you can see, I'm doing a little bit of drinking here. Speaking of that, I'm gonna get one of these. Oh. Now you're probably all wondering why I'm doing this. For one, it's my 40th birthday coming up February 2nd. So I've got about 20 people heading to the casinos for the weekend. Gonna have a great time. Gonna really enjoy ourselves out there. A lot of great people are gonna be out there, family, friends, and really excited for all of that. But, wanted to get that out to tell you guys now that is what is happening. And as well as I will have some video from our time at the casinos. A lot of partying, I'm sure, is going to be planned. So stick around. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not yet done so. And, that's the deal. That's the deal. So we will get it now to the bets. Let's talk about now the best bet. The best bet was on Karl Robertson to defeat Glover Teixeira. Now, this one's also driving me to drink, I think, today. This one here, for those of you that made the purchase on Wagertalk, those of you that I had conversations prior about this fight, about Robertson and Glover here. I mean, you take a look at these two guys. You've got Karl is a great fighter. He has terrific kickboxing. He has got great opportunity the way he moves forward. Great combinations, very quick. And the big thing difference here, why I liked Robertson, is because the fact that really, it's just his combinations and his speed was going to be a lot more for something like Glover to handle. And now Glover really, he's really downplaying, really declining on how he's really, at this point in his career. I mean, he's going to be 40. It doesn't really seem like this is, he's had some wins. He's fought a lot of, top-notch elite fighters. So obviously with that, there's going to be the cage experience there. And that was the difference maker here. I mean, Karl came into this. He came in guns blazing. He was doing great. He came out there. He got Glover to the ground with some hard elbows. And that was where I thought the fight was over. I thought I was about to start cashing my money. I was about to start counting my money, cashing the ticket, and say, all right, let's go on to the next fight. I thought it was a done deal. And just, it was the inexperience here because, when he had gotten Glover to the ground and he was on top of him, he was definitely doing more damage. There was a point I kind of wanted him to get up. And, you definitely, there was opportunities there for him to finish that fight and get that victory, but Glover is so tough to put away. He's not a guy that's just going to take a flash knockdown, and then just be put away. So he kept pushing forward. He kept, with his heart, he did not give up. And that was something where as soon as Glover kind of he was hurt, but as soon as he started kind of pushing forward and trying to get the takedown, that was when I was like, he's got to get space. He's got to be able to move around the cage a little bit and get back to what he was doing. And Roberson was not doing that. He was not doing that. He was just, he engaged right away, and Glover went for the quick takedown because he knew, I cannot outstrike this guy. He is a lot quicker. He's got a lot of weapons. And right when he got on top of him, he got full mount. I said the fight's over at that point. I said there's no way that this guy's going to be able to get Glover off of him at full mount with half of a round left. So not much to break down in that fight. It was a fight where I thought I really handicapped it right. I thought that I really picked apart some of the things that really he could expose on Glover. And as soon as Glover realized that the speed and the combinations and the weapons that Roberson had, that was the end of it. That was where Glover said, I'm taking this fight to the ground. There's not going to be any stand-up combinations at this point. We're not going to be doing those exchanges. He brought him to the ground. That was something I was worried about, but I didn't think that it would happen that quickly. I thought that Roberson would be able to get the finish early and not have to worry about a 3-round, ground and pound from Glover. So it was a miss for us on the best bet play, but you know what? It was a very tight fight. For very short it was an opportunity for him to put that fight away. He did not get that victory, so Glover does get that victory. This play last year was a 69% winner. We did not start 2019 in the winners column, but it's a long journey in 2019. So we did not get that victory. The other one that I want to talk about is Alexander Hernandez versus Donald Cerrone. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So, in this fight here was the free play between Alexander Hernandez and Donald Cerrone. Now, this fight, I don't have to break it down, my thought process, because we talked about it on the prediction show, but you take a look at these two guys, and for me, a lot of people said, hey, Kyle, was it the hype? Was it the hype behind Hernandez, the talk, all of those things? Was it that really pulled you in? I said, absolutely not. I said, I already had my bets in before the press conferences and all these other things. I mean, I don't know if it made me feel good or bad watching it. I liked the confidence. I definitely liked the confidence, but to me, I liked his athleticism. I like what he's able to do. I like that he has good cage movement. I actually think that there was, even against Mercier, and I was talking to people today in the comment section from the prediction show about their thought process on what was really happening in that fight. And this fight against Hernandez against Mercier, I actually liked that fight. Now, there was other people kind of saying, you know what, it didn't really show too much. It really wasn't, a full-on display. But to me, you go out there and you knock out Darnouche in 40 seconds or whatever it was in his first fight. And then he comes out in a grinding out kind of fight against Mercier. And I like that. I think that was a big positive. It's not like Mercier is some world beater, but Mercier's good, and he's tough, and there's been spots where he has shown weakness, but he's still a tough fighter, a grappler. He's going to get in tight, and a guy like Hernandez, that was going to be a tough road for him. So I thought that him getting that victory, and I thought he looked good, was more of a reason why I liked him going into this fight against Cerrone. And again, Cerrone coming back to the lightweight division at a certain age now in his career, or a certain spot in his career now, that is that going to be really draining his body? Is that going to be enough for him to really be able to push forward, have that chin, have those combinations, and be able to keep that stamina going? And in this fight, I mean, it was almost as lopsided as you can get a fight. Hernandez was not able to land anything. He looked like he was completely and utterly confused from the beginning of that bell to once he was done fighting and he had lost the fight. I mean, there was just not much that he was able to do out there. Cerrone looked impressive, and it's very tough for me at this point. I'm staying away from Cerrone fights because I think it was my free play, Mike Perry against Donald Cerrone, and I like Perry. And for the same reasons that I kind of liked Hernandez here, pushing forward, the power, the strength, going to be able to get inside on him, work against a guy who I'm looking at as Cerrone as being a little bit weak. And you know what? He looked great out there. He was able to really do, the way he was engaging and the way that they were exchanging. I just was very impressed by what he was able to do. He's a veteran. That was obviously going to be a big part of this as well, that he's the veteran here going up against the young gun coming up. Obviously not enough cage experience, but that athleticism and the quickness, the speed, and how explosive Hernandez has looked, I thought that that was going to be enough in that first round, that it was really going to be very tough for Cerrone to just withstand that. It's not, again, I'm not trying to put, Hernandez up in this upper echelon fighter, but I thought that he was going to be able to really work that, and all Cerrone did was pick him apart from beginning to end. I give him a lot of credit there. It was a great cash in for those who did bet Cerrone at plus 170, 165. So, again, it's a great spot for Cerrone to get this victory. Interesting to see now. They're talking about him now fighting possibly Conor McGregor. I don't know if that's really something that's going to be happening. I don't know if that's even that exciting of a fight. I'm not really sure how to feel about it yet. But, I would assume Conor would win that fight. But, Cerrone, he's a journeyman. And, again, he's got some of the most wins in the UFC and all these other great things that he's done. He is very, very well-liked. Big fan favorite, so I have to congratulate a guy like that to go out there, get a victory against a loudmouth that he was able to really shut down and completely derail that hype train. I mean, that hype train went from, hey, you know what, Hernandez is pretty good. Hernandez is a good fighter. And then after the press conference, it was like, it went from, yeah, it's interesting to, wow, who is this guy? And then, the light was shined on him, and then he was completely exposed by Donald Cerrone. So Cerrone goes out there and does get that victory. Now, the other one I wanted to talk about real quickly was the co-main event. Now, obviously, it's obvious that, the UFC and ESPN wanted to kind of, showcase Greg Hardy and have him out there as, hey, he's a football player, an ex-football player. People kind of know him. It's going to get some, people maybe will download the app a little bit more. But it was very weird where you got a guy who's 3-0 within MMA as a whole. You got the other guy, Crowder, who's 9-3. And what is this doing in the co-main event? I mean, what is this absolutely doing with so many other great fights in there, even with Rachel versus Paige? I mean, there was so many other good fights out there that could have been a co-main event. And I know it, again, it's all about the dollars. It's definitely all about the dollars, but very odd that they would make that the co-main event where, again, there was a good amount of fights that, or at least notable fighters that were even with Glover. I mean, Glover's a notable guy. He's a journeyman, but he's been a top 10 guy almost his whole career since entering the UFC. But then you got a fight like this that goes in there. Hardy struggles a little bit. And now you got Crowder was taunting him. And some people are now saying, hey, did he mean to do that? Was he purposely just frustrated, knew he was down, threw the knee to just say, I'm done with this fight, let's just move on? I'm not sure if it's that. I just think it's completely inexperience. He wasn't sure. Again, I am not a UFC fighter, so I don't know what those split-second decisions when you're in the middle of a sanctioned fight, what your thought process is going to be in that split second when you only have 3 fights over your entire career. I mean, you can watch Bellator, you can watch, one championship, you can watch certain organizations that don't have the elite guys that aren't used to that kind of thing, that aren't used to how to really just take a look at a situation, focus in on it, and realize this is an illegal shot. I mean, even guys still do it. I mean, obviously you've seen, many guys, got Poirier and Eddie Alvarez, and those things have happened there. So there definitely has been a lot. It was just so obvious he was on one knee, which makes it worse that he was literally sitting on one, not even attempting to get up, and he throws the knee. That being one part of it. But the other part of it was the odds part of it. I mean, you take a look at it, and I talked about this with a couple of you guys on Twitter. Follow me at Mr. UFC Vegas on Twitter. But for those of the people that were talking on Twitter, it was the same thing. I mean, you're looking at Hardy, who was a minus 515 going into this fight against Crowder, who was a plus 400 roughly about. To me, I just kept saying to everyone, stay away from it. Stay away from that fight. I mean, anyone who's a plus 500 better be an absolute killer against somebody who is plus 400. They must be. And for him to have such an inexperienced and not much cage out there in the cage much, that was where you got to just kind of stay away from it. I wonder what they're going to do with Hardy now. I think that at this point, I mean, Hardy was, I thought he was on his way to losing that fight. I mean, obviously it's heavyweights, anybody can land a big shot, but he looked almost, once he was the one being taunted, and once he couldn't put Crowder away within the first 20 seconds of the fight, he kind of, wow, this is what it's like to be in a fight. I'm not fighting a tomato can here. I got a guy that actually has, 12, 13 fights within the UFC. So that's the kind of, or within mixed martial arts. So that's the kind of thing where you realize that there's so many levels to this. Hardy realized it to himself there. I wish we could have saw a little bit more. I have nothing against him personally, but I would have liked to have seen more, but it just looked very, very bad. That being the co-main event, and then that happening. Very horrible, just that's all that all went down. But let's also quickly try and run through these. Quickly talk about the main event. They're going down like water today. So, main event obviously was Henry Cejudo versus TJ Dillashaw. Now, this fight we talked about in the prediction show, got into some of the things that we liked about Henry Cejudo, and I had a little exposure on him, not enough to even really celebrate. It helped me with my other two bets that I had, but I had a little bit on him at plus 175. And this fight was, to me, we're going to we'll talk about the stoppage in a minute, but to me, looking at it at a betting perspective again, you got plus 175, flyweight champion, and you got TJ coming down, fighting the flyweight champion. I think that had a lot to do with it. That's just my opinion. I mean, obviously, you could really twist it and turn it and talk about anything you want to talk about, but when you're talking about a guy that had to drop 10 pounds, who isn't big for his division already, coming down and fighting a guy who, and although they are very similar, there's no doubt, I mean, they're apparently, from the reports or whatever, that they're very close to just natural body weight. Both Henry and TJ are very close to that. But there's something about the way that Henry looks and the way he holds muscle on his body compared to where TJ was. I mean, if they were very similar in weight, which it sounded like they possibly were during fight night, they both kind of gained the same amount. Henry looked filled out. He looked muscular. He looked where TJ just looked weak. And I really hope they don't do this fight again at flyweight, although who the heck knows what's happening with that division. I mean, they're talking about getting rid of it. Now you've got Henry Cejudo knocking out TJ in 30 seconds, and now what happens? So I hope if they do this again, I hope it happens at bantamweight. I think it'd be very different, as in just what's going to happen. I'm not saying that TJ will win or Cejudo will win or however that'll be. I just think it's going to be a different fight. You're going to have a filled out, normal TJ Dillashaw. And TJ was so happy, which sometimes I look at that as well. Not that I did it in this fight, but sometimes I look at the fact that sometimes the weight cut is almost like the hero play. It's almost like, look, I did it. And it was a lot where we had one of our best bet plays was Tyron Woodley versus Darren Till. And everyone was knocking Darren Till, saying, you're never making weight. You're not making weight. He makes weight. And he was given the finger at the weigh-ins. It was almost like that was the win. And yet you still have a title fight, but that was the win. And now he's realizing, this is not my weight class. I can't do this. And it was almost like the same thing with TJ. TJ is out there. He did make weight. He prepped himself apparently for so much further in advance than he normally does. And then he goes into this fight and he didn't, he didn't look good. That's my opinion again. I thought he looked very, very skinny. Although, of course, he has to because he has to lose 10 pounds to get down there. But I didn't see muscle. He just looked, his arms were hanging off of his shoulders, and it didn't look like he really had much definition compared to when you see him at bantamweight. He's filled out, he looks good, he looks healthy. I think that, I actually hope this fight happens again. I think that that's actually a nice storyline for the UFC to build up again, that if that's an opportunity where they fight again, make it be bantamweight, let the flyweight champion, or whatever happens at that division, come up, fight there, and right now, who knows how good Cejudo is? Who knows how good he is? He just beat Demetrius Johnson and TJ Dillashaw in his last two fights. Demetrius Johnson is arguably, we'll leave that for another time to talk about, but arguably one of the best fighters ever, and obviously one of the best the best flyweight ever. Beats him, and then he goes to bantamweight, fights TJ Dillashaw. TJ Dillashaw is arguably the best bantamweight champion. Beats him in impressive fashion. So
Now the storyline is, I think that you almost get rid of the flyweight division. This is the way I look at it. Get rid of the flyweight division and let Henry Cejudo start moving up and see where he goes from there. Let him take over the bantamweight division. Let him move up. I think he's the kind of guy that can really grow within the UFC and also will hold the weight very, very well and yet not hinder anything to do with his ability. And then quickly talking about the stoppage. The stoppage here, I thought it was it early? Slightly. That's all I can say about it. I don't really give more to what else happened there. You can really talk about, did it hit him on the back of the head a little bit and that, took his equilibrium off and that's how he fell down. And that's, all those things I think are semantics. I think they're some details when it comes. I think you look at a fight and you look at a guy who he got dropped, I think twice. Or we got pushed on the first one. It was kind of a push and he stumbled, and then when he got up, he got clocked. But I think TJ was there. I don't think it wasn't like TJ was out cold at any point there, but he was in a bad spot. I mean, there is no question TJ Dillashaw was in a terrible, terrible spot when that fight was, when they stopped that fight. I mean, yeah, was he going for a single or was he, people were saying, hey, he was trying to get a takedown. I don't really know if he was fully there, but even if he was attempting it, you're going for a single on an Olympic champion wrestler. You're not going on like, Derek Lewis, or you're going on an Olympic wrestler that even if he's somehow, if they let it go forward, I think that TJ's in a ton of trouble. And I think that fight ends maybe 30 seconds later, maybe a minute later. I just don't think that there was a path there. I mean, TJ's tough. And again, I'm a fan of his. I think he's done amazing things in his division and finishing Cody Garbrandt twice and all these great, I just think in this spot here, he had lost the fight. I don't think there was any chance for him really coming back. It would have been something miraculous, in my opinion, for him to really come back from that. So Henry Cejudo does get the victory there. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys bet. Do you think it was an early stoppage? Do you think it was normal? Do you think it was, hey, this is, this is where it should be. They should stop this. Or do you think that, this was way early and they screwed this fight up? It was a super fight and they screwed it up. Let me know what you guys think down below because I want to talk about it. We'll talk about it more down in the comment section. And again, I appreciate everybody who has been supporting this channel. We will be changing the February 2nd, which will be, or is, my birthday, my 40th birthday. I'll have a couple little changes here onto the name. Nothing crazy, some new designs, maybe a new intro. We'll see kind of how things go there. And, and again, I want to document a little bit of my time with all my friends and family out at the casinos, partying up a little bit. So we'll have a good time. We will bring you along with us. And if you have not yet done so, do not forget to subscribe, like, kick the bell icon, get involved with Fight Club TV. And this is Mr. UFC Vegas, Fight Club TV.